Hi folks, this is your first lesson. This is going to be on area of a rectangle. Just to begin, we've got some revision questions for you to try. So if you maybe on a bit of paper, if you pause the video and have a wee go at the 3 questions, and then we'll go over it in a few seconds. Okay, so question 1, expanding the brackets. So if you remember back to our previous lessons, expanding the brackets means we multiply the thing outside the bracket by everything inside the bracket. So 4 multiplies the x, and then 4 multiplies the -7. So 4 multiplied by x, let's hope you got 4x, and then 4 times 7 is 28, so minus 28. Question 2, factorising 14x minus 21. So we're looking for what is the highest common factor between 14x and negative 21. Okay. So in other words, what's the biggest thing that these will both divide by? So if we look at the numbers, just first of all, 14 and 21, well, 7 is the largest number they'll both divide by, and then they don't share any common letters, so 7 is the biggest thing we can choose. Then we open a bracket. Inside the bracket, we decide 7 multiplies what to get 14x. Well, 7 times 2 gives you 14, and then the x. And then 7 times what gives me negative 21? Well, that has to be negative 3. So 7 bracket 2x minus 3. And question 3, simplifying 2x minus 3y plus 7x plus y. And I'll do this the long method that we did in class. So 2x means we have 2 positive x's. We have another 7 positive x's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that's all the x is taken care of. Then we've got negative 3y, so that's 3 negative y's. So negative y, and negative y, and then 1 positive y. Okay, so this is everything we've got, and we'll just see if there's any pairs we can pair up and cancel. So if we look at this, we'll only have positive x's here, so overall we have, well, we had that 2 x's initially and then the extra 7, so overall we have 9x. So 9x's in total. And then 1 negative y will cancel 1 positive y and leave us with negative 2y. There we go. Okay, so these will be in your assessment when you come back, so just make sure you're looking at them. I'll post some practice materials on Teams as well. But for the main part of today, this is looking at the area of a rectangle. So first of all, need to ask, just make sure we know what we mean by the area. So just the amount of space inside a 2-dimensional shape. So I have a rectangle here, and we generally measure area in squared units. So in this case, if our units are, if our shape is smaller, if our lengths are in centimetres, then our unit of measurement would be square centimetres. If I had another shape whose length, let's say a rectangle whose length was 12 metres instead, then our unit would be square metres. Okay, so we need to make sure we put the correct units in. So centimetres gives us square centimetres, metres would give us square metres, and so on. And we measure, what we're really trying to do is work out how many of these square units, in this case centimetres, so how many square centimetres would fit into our shape. So we'll do some examples and see. So what you could do in a wee bit of paper, if you want to just copy this down and we can go through it together, or else you can just watch. But we're looking to see if there's some kind of connection between the number of rows and the number of columns in each of these shapes, which give us the total area. So in this rectangle here, so these are all rectangles. In this big rectangle, what I want to first of all is work out the number of rows. So the number of rows is how many of these across the way. So in this case there are 2 rows, there are 3 columns, and the total number of squares, well, if we count the number of squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. So that has an area of 6 of these squares. Okay, for the second one, there is only 1 row, but there are 5 columns, and overall there are 5 boxes. 5 squares in total. This one, there are 2 rows again. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. And overall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 squares. And the last one, which is a square actually, we have 3 rows and 3 columns. But overall, if we count the number of squares we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 squares. Okay. And this is just a wee exercise to see if you can spot the relationship between the area, which is the number of squares in total that make up the shape, and the number of rows and columns that make up that shape. And hopefully you can see that the total area of the shape is just the number of rows multiplied by the number of columns. So 2 multiplied by 3 is 6, 1 times 5 is 5, 2 multiplied by 5 is 10, and 3 multiplied by 3 is 9. And that leads us to a nice wee formula. If we're working out the area of a rectangle, then we can use the formula the area is equal to the length of the rectangle multiplied by the breadth of the rectangle. So maybe a wee bit of a recap for some of you as well, but we're going to do a wee bit of practice on that today. So formula, length times breadth. We have some shapes here where we can just double check that we've got the right area by counting the boxes, but we'll follow this formula. Now the working that I'd like you to be doing is going to be just like the way I'm doing it. So we're always going to start off with the correct formula. So area is equal to, and I'm going to rewrite this as just L times B. So instead of writing length times breadth each time, L times B is fine. So the length is the length of one side of the shape. So in this case, the length of 6 centimeters. So that's going to be 6 multiplied by, and the breadth, which is the height or the breadth, can mean the same thing. So in this case is 4. So 6 times 4, which is 24. Okay, and we're working in centimeters, so my units would be square centimeters. Okay, and question 2, you maybe want to try this yourself. Pause the video, try this, and then just double check you got the correct answer and the correct working. So always start off with our formula. So area is L times B. Length in this case is 7, and the breadth is 2. And 7 times 2 is 14. And again, we're in centimetres, so this will still be square centimetres. And there we go. And the last example, this time we don't have the boxes to work out what the area is to count the area, but we can still do the same thing, follow the same formula. So again, we start off with area is L times B. Okay, so this shape has a length of 5 and a breadth of 3. And then 5 times 3 is 15. And again, we're in centimetres, so that would be square centimetres. And final example, a bit trickier this time in terms of the numbers, but the working is just the same. So we always start off, identify it's a rectangle in the first place, and then area is length times breadth. So the area is 18 multiplied by 16. And in your assessment, you will be given a calculator that you can work this out, but it might be a nice idea just to get a bit of practice on our number work as well. So I could just set up a wee calculation. We could use a grid, we could use a lattice, or we could do just the algorithm for it. So 6 8s are 48. 6 times 1 is 6, but add your 4 is 10, so 108 for the first bit. Moving into the tens column, so we put a 0 in because we're multiplying by a 10. Then 1 times 8 is 8, and 1 multiplied by 1 is 1. And we end up with 8, 8, 2, so 288. Okay, so 288. And that would be meters this time, so squared meters. Okay, so if you can just make sure you've got a copy of that, just when you're working through your own work, then you know how the working should be laid out. Um, I've posted on Teams on the assignment tab, you'll see the area of a rectangle worksheet. There's a rectangle and triangle and one thing. But if you try question 1, and then you can look at the video for the triangle for the next lesson. Okay, well, enjoy.